Hi, everyone. Welcome to our great panel here that we're going to have today on panel.
Sure do these two.
Talking about AI and its impact on streaming TV. It's a great venue for it. I'd like to introduce a couple of folks here. We've got Rob Caruso with Google. We've got Garrett, Goodman, with Papercup. And let me give them about 30 seconds or so, just kind of describe what you guys do.
Sure.
You've never heard of Google, sure, I'm sure.
You probably heard of Google. You may or may not have heard of Google TV. I hope you have by the end of this week. I run product and user experience for Google TV. Google TV is a smart TV operating system that powers over 220 million smart TVs and streaming devices around the world.
Great. Garrett.
First of all, thank you guys for showing up. It's been a great show, but I appreciate you guys coming in, especially at lunchtime. I'm Garrett. I work at Papercup. We do AI dubbing that gets perfected by professional translators, so it's a hybrid approach. And we're used by studios and distributors like Questar, like Fuse, like Fremantle, to take their existing channels into new markets, and carried by a lot of the tier 1 fast platforms already.
Great. And I'm Mark Vena with SmartTech Research. It's a small research firm that was, up until recently, out of San Jose, but I've recently relocated to Las Vegas. More about that later. But it's a great topic to talk about because I flew in this morning after spending 3 days with Qualcomm, and they were showing some of their future usage models and trends with their silicon on the smartphone level and other devices, and I can just assure you that you ain't seen anything yet in terms of what's coming down the path. ChatGPT is kind of entry level in terms of some of the usage models that you're going to see soon. But the interesting thing about this, and I read some interesting research from Park Associates a couple days ago where they actually showed how the average streaming subscription level is now declining. I think that the number they were showing was $90. Now it's declining, I think, down to around 64. And the reason why I think that's relevant is that AI, with all the different avenues and usage models and benefits that it's going to drive, presumably, if you're a streaming content company, there might be some salvation there in terms of using that as a device to help increase the average subscription rate over time. Because let's face it, you know, after COVID, people had kind of streaming TV content mania. They've kind of now battened down the hatches. They're kind of looking much more closely in terms of the monies that they're spending. And AI may be a component to helping them. We're certainly going to explore that. But there's other things, of course, that AI will have a certain powerful impact in terms of making the user experience much more significantly better than it is today. In fact, I just bought a Google TV.
Good.
From TCL, it's a very fine TV. And
beautiful.
And thank you for the discount. No, he didn't get me a discount. But what we did here before, we actually huddled about 3 or 4 days ago, and I'll bring up the topics right here. Oh, that's not the.
That's not that.
That's not the slide.
I'm gonna grab some water.
We had a slide with the topics.
Wrong direction.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find that.
Here you go, Mark.
Thank you very much. Can we somehow, there was just the slide with the topics we had on it. We may have to go manual in a second if we can't pull it up.
Big end game
That's not it.
for any artist like you has to be Vegas.
Okay. So we'll just go real time here and just talk a little bit about the topics here that we kind of talked about a couple of days ago. And
Oh, I think
do we have it right there?
there might have been something.
Big end game.
After that, maybe.
You guys are getting a teaser of the video to
Yeah.
come.
There is a video.
Yeah.
We can riff.
Yeah. Anyway, let's just go with it as we were. The thing that jumped out at me when we think about AI is that AI is not a brand new topic in the streaming content category. Netflix has been doing it for several years, albeit probably in a less efficient, more manual method from an algorithm standpoint. But most of the streaming content companies out there for the last 10 years or so have been employing some type of AI capability to provide better customization, better recommendations on the content you're using. And certainly that's going to get a lot better over time. So it's not a brand new, if you talk to some people think that AI just kind of happened last week, and that's certainly not the case. But let's talk a little bit about, frankly, some of the positive things from a usage model standpoint that we think AI will drive in the streaming content area over the next couple of years. So let me start with Garrett on that.
Sure. So obviously we deal with in the space of speech, right? So when we see AI bringing value to the industry, it's about all of that back catalog of content, which would have been cost prohibitive to dub with traditional methods, and it's just sitting there locked in one language. Now is getting unlocked thanks to generative AI and more palatable cost structures, and it's reaching wider audiences and entering new markets. And so that's a very kind of concrete case of AI being used today already to unlock value for the industry.
Rob?
Yeah, I would build off that and sort of put that in the thematic of efficiency and quality. We could also go on a totally different tangent around creation and content creation. I don't think anybody on this panel can really speak to that. It's not our areas of focus, certainly not as a smart TV operating system. And we saw a little bit of that yesterday. There was a teaser in the morning session around like, what do we think AI will bring from a content creation and generation perspective? And that's a whole, like I said, a separate track. Where I focus on it mostly is, and where I think it'll be most profound, specifically in streaming outside of content, is quality and efficiency in boosting the things that we're already doing with AI. And as AI gets better, right, everything we've been doing with it will get better as well. So when you think about dubbing, when you think about even analyzing user behavior, right? Today, to your point, what Netflix does with personalized recommendations, like that's profound and was profound for years. But there is a lot of manual creation there and manual input. Just before we were coming up here, I was literally playing with Google's LLM Gemini, and I asked it, if I use the MLB app every single day, what are some shows I would like on Netflix? That kind of, and it was able to understand that the MLB app means baseball, and it was then able to look into a Netflix catalog, which it already had knowledge of, and recommend very on-point shows. That is not possible in the old world, right? And I think what that brings going forward is just a massive improvement in what we're already doing without it being even sort of branded in any way, shape, or form, right? So your recommendations, your personalization, everything will just get better. In many of the same ways we've been doing it.
Well, and we saw what Apple announced a couple of weeks ago at WWDC in terms that Siri is going to become a lot smarter in terms of being able to understand very complex statements. It's not going to be, hey Siri, turn on the lights. It's going to be, hey Siri, do a number of different things. And by the way, understand the context of how those statements, those commands and directions were made.
Or the lights will just come on because it's already smart enough to know that you're home, it's time of day, it knows when sunset is. I use some smart plugs that you used to have to, I don't know, dating myself here, but there have always been these timers, and you use these color-coded things to say when you want the Christmas lights to come on or when you want them to go off. You don't need that anymore. Now, with a very cheap plug, you can go into an app and just say sunset and sunrise, and it knows, right? That's AI and using information. But then to go one step further and not even need to program that, I mean, I think that's just the evolution that we're looking at.
And then when you look at things like, for example, YouTube, which obviously is an incredibly popular content, people in many cases are not, especially the younger generation, are not streaming to conventional streaming content services, but they're using YouTube to get their news, to watch short video clips. And the ability to use AI to really zero in on a portion of content that you don't have to watch the entire length of that clip is an amazing achievement. I mean, from a content discovery standpoint, from just an experience and immersiveness standpoint. So that's going to be a big deal, I think, over time.
It's also something that is going to make it much easier for the humans. Nobody really wants to sit there and watch an entire show and clip out manually all of those segments, right? It's a case of augmentation right now, right? It's just making the jobs
Now, as someone who has a podcast, I hate that, that portion. And it's not just the ability to do it, it's to do it in a very high quality way.
Sure.
And I mean, 'cause there are tools out there that will kind of scan YouTube content or audio content and allow you to kind of automatically identify a particular topic. But when you plug in these large language models, I mean, the level of precision is unbelievable and drives a much better user experience. Let's talk, the one thing that I do want to talk about, since I just got out of this Qualcomm briefing, the challenge in the streaming TV content area is that televisions is a ruthlessly competitive business. If I gave you $5 million, you probably would not say, hey, let's go into the TV business from a manufacturing standpoint. You got to have a lot of guts from a margin standpoint, lots and lots of brands. The players have changed pretty dramatically over the last few years in terms of share. You have this kind of trend that's been happening in terms of the big TV makers implementing. Oh, here we go. I see a slide coming up here. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Any artist like you
Oh, no.
In the video.
How are you just going to stop the audio? But the thing that to me is fascinating is that in the smartphone category, where a $1,000 smartphone, a $1,500 smartphone can absorb the ingredients that go into it to create that AI experience, whether it's and not to say the Snapdragon solution is the entire cost of the BOM, but in the TV space, adding $5 to a television set from a BOM standpoint is that you have to provide real value to it. So let's talk about the usage models. If you really believe on-device AI is really the future, from a security and privacy standpoint, from a latency standpoint, how does that area get addressed in a streaming content context? So I'll start with you, Rob.
I don't know. I think you touched on something that's really important, which is the privacy component, and that is one of the biggest drivers for the on-device, right? Because when you think about the inputs that can be handled by a model and what it could do with those, right? You do get into the value exchange of, wow, this could really be unbelievably helpful to a user and valuable. But if that data and all those inputs and all those learnings are moving into off device, off your personal device, phone, TV, whatever, you bring into a whole sort of sea of challenges with that from a privacy and regulatory perspective. So again, hence the push to say, well, if we keep it local and we can do all this amazing this work for you and give you a more valuable experience, that sounds great. But to do that all locally is very expensive, and to scale that is very expensive. So then you get into the cost trade-off. Is the value we're bringing the user worth
the cost?
Right, worth that cost? I would tend to hope so, but how do you communicate that to users, right? Because you then have a chicken or egg issue, which is in order to actually build that and get that out there, you need to convince users before you've even really delivered the experiences. And honestly, moving it to the cloud is cheaper and scales faster, but it's not cheap.